When slavery is abolished in law, the plantation system does not dissolve. It is reorganized. The transition is managed through a structure designed to keep labor in place while changing its legal form. This structure is called apprenticeship. It converts enslaved people into apprentices bound to their former owners for fixed periods. Field workers are assigned longer terms than domestic workers. Labor remains compulsory. Movement remains restricted. Authority is transferred from private ownership to legal supervision. The purpose of apprenticeship is not to prepare people for freedom. It is to prevent disruption. Sugar production depends on continuity. Mills require daily labor. Cane must be cut on schedule. Credit depends on export flow. A sudden loss of workers would threaten revenue and confidence. Apprenticeship is built to protect these chains while allowing Britain to claim moral reform. The system relies on magistrates rather than overseers to enforce discipline. Courts replace whips as the official source of punishment. Complaints are heard in formal settings. Sentences are recorded. This creates the appearance of justice while preserving the outcome of control. Refusal to work becomes a breach of contract rather than an act of resistance. Absence becomes vagrancy rather than flight. For planters, apprenticeship offers continuity with reduced risk. They retain access to labor without paying wages. They maintain housing and food arrangements under legal obligation rather than ownership. They lose the right to sell people, but they keep the right to command time. The plantation remains the center of daily life. The work routine remains unchanged. For former slaves, the change is difficult to interpret. They are told they are free, but they cannot leave. They are promised protection, but they remain subject to command. Their legal status shifts faster than their lived conditions. Expectations rise without resources to meet them. Freedom is announced without land, wages, or independent housing. Conflict moves into the courts. Apprentices bring complaints against excessive labor and punishment. Planters bring complaints against laziness and disobedience. Magistrates are placed between them. Many magistrates come from the same social class as estate owners. Their rulings often favor continuity over change. Law becomes a tool of adjustment rather than transformation. The daily struggle centers on time. Apprentices are assigned fixed hours of unpaid labor each week. Any work beyond that is meant to be paid. Estates stretch these limits. Workdays lengthen through task definitions and emergency claims. Disputes focus on whether work is compulsory or optional. Control becomes a matter of interpretation. Punishment continues in new forms. Whipping is restricted, but imprisonment replaces it. Stocks and treadmills appear as substitutes. The body is still disciplined. The language of correction replaces the language of ownership. Authority becomes procedural rather than personal. Missionaries and reformers monitor the system. They report that apprenticeship reproduces slavery under another name. They describe magistrates siding with planters and apprentices punished for asserting rights they are told they possess. Letters and testimonies reach Britain. The transition becomes a second political struggle. Economic pressures remain. Sugar prices fluctuate. Estates face competition from other colonies and from beet sugar in Europe. Costs rise as courts replace overseers. Labor is less predictable. Workers test boundaries. Managers respond by tightening rules. The plantation adapts but becomes less efficient. Social relations change unevenly. Families are less likely to be separated by sale. Marriage becomes more stable. Worship continues. Literacy spreads. These changes increase expectations of autonomy without removing dependence on estate wages and housing. The gap between legal freedom and material control widens. Apprenticeship also reshapes resistance. Escape becomes less common because movement is still restricted. Violence becomes less useful because the system claims to be reforming. Disputes become legal rather than physical. Conflict moves from forests and fields into offices and courtrooms. This produces a constant friction. Planters want obedience. Apprentices want recognition of freedom. Magistrates want order. None can fully satisfy the others. The system operates through complaint rather than command, but the result is still control. By the mid-1830s, the transitional structure loses credibility. It is too coercive to be humane and too unstable to be secure. Planters complain that labor is unreliable. Apprentices complain that freedom has been delayed. Missionaries complain that reform has been betrayed. The state faces pressure from all sides. In Britain, apprenticeship comes to be seen as a failure. Reports describe overcrowded prisons, biased courts, and continued exploitation. Public confidence in gradualism weakens. Emancipation is no longer viewed as dangerous. Delay is. In 1838, apprenticeship is ended early. Former apprentices are declared legally free. They can leave estates. Labor becomes contractual. Movement becomes possible. Ownership of time is replaced by negotiation over wages. This does not produce equality. Land remains concentrated. Housing remains tied to estates. Employment is scarce outside plantations. Wages are low. Laws favor employers. Control mutates rather than disappears. Freedom enters Jamaica as a legal condition without an economic foundation. The plantation system survives by changing form. It no longer owns people. It commands work through scarcity and contract. Apprenticeship reveals the limits of reform that preserves structure. It shows that removing legal ownership does not remove dependence. It demonstrates that authority can be transferred from chains to courts without altering outcomes. The end of apprenticeship closes one system and opens another. Slavery disappears from statute. Coercion remains in practice. Control shifts from private violence to public regulation. What is delayed is not only freedom, it is transformation. The plantation adapts again, this time to a world without legal bondage, but with unequal access to land, wages, and law. The system does not collapse, it mutates. Apprenticeship stands as the bridge between slavery and wage labor. It does not prepare people for independence. It prepares the plantation for survival.